My name is Talia Chalkowska. I'm a green tech consultant at Green Economy and your host for today's webinar. So this webinar forms part of our Demystifying series to help businesses better understand and build confidence in investing in these technologies. So in the past, we've done demystifying webinars on demystifying heat pumps, demystifying electric vehicle charge points, demystifying sustainable heating. And if you want to watch any of these back, they're on our YouTube channel. Simply go on YouTube, type in Green Economy, demystifying, and they'll all come up. So plan for today, we're going to begin with some introductions very shortly, followed by a panel discussion, followed by a Q&A. So there should be a Q&A section on your screen. So if you have any questions throughout, just pop them in there and we'll be addressing them at the end. One more thing, we'll be recording this webinar so that we can make it publicly available on that YouTube channel I mentioned. So without further ado, we'll begin with introductions. So Richard, could you start us off?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm Richard Hagan. I was the Managing Director of Crystal Doors for 29 years, and then last year sold to become an employees-owned trust. We do have a full roof of solar panels. We at the moment consume about 75% of it, but hopefully come next year, we'll be consuming 100% with the smart factory.
Thank you, Richard. Gary?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Gary Brandwood. I'm the founder of Perfect Sense Energy, who are a solar PV installer for businesses in our 15th year now, after forming back in 2010. Richard has been one of the pioneers and has been our client for many years, investing in 2 phases of solar, some smart LED lighting, EV charge points as well. So that's me.
Thanks, Gary. And over to you, Piyush.
Thanks, Talia. My name is Piyush Singh. I'm a sustainability and net zero consultant at Green Economy. Essentially, Green Economy has 2 sides. On one side, we have a team that supports the growth of a green tech businesses. They also look for marketplace, actually directory of green tech suppliers. But the work I do is more of a decarbonization side, where we help business of any size, any sectors to decarbonize, which typically involves one-to-one resource efficient site visits. We look for opportunities that can easily be implemented within the businesses and help them reduce carbon cost. We also do carbon footprinting for the businesses and building strategies for them. We run peer network groups platform where we are promoting businesses to exchange their challenges and solutions, what they have faced in the past and how they have overcome with those hurdles. And then we run carbon literacy programs where we educate, businesses, creating awareness among staff and businesses.
Thank you, Piyush. So before we dig into the panel discussion, we've set up a poll to help us understand your knowledge of solar at this point in time. So IT permitting, 3 questions should be showing up on your screen for you to answer. I'll give you 10 seconds to answer those, and then we'll dig into this panel discussion. Right, I hope that's given you enough time. So let's begin with some scene setting. What is solar and why should we be considering it as an investment? So Piyush, why do we need to decarbonize our energy systems?
Thanks, Talia. So decarbonizing is an essential for businesses, not just from an environmental perspective, but also from an economic, social, and regulatory reasons. The main driver behind this shift is basically the pressing need of addressing the climate change. We can see greenhouse emissions, especially carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels, are the primary cause of global warming. If we cut down these carbon emissions, businesses can help us to mitigate the global warming and associated impacts such as extreme weather events, sea level rises, and biodiversity loss. In terms of the economic benefits, by reducing the energy consumption and improving energy efficiencies can lead to a significant cost saving. Investment in renewable energy sources such as solar can decrease the reliance on volatile fossil fuel markets and lead to lower energy bills on a longer term. This decarbonization actually gave us benefit in terms of marketing strategy as well, because investors are now more focused towards sustainable and environmental responsible businesses. We can seek more investment that will help us to access capital. We get more funds directed towards companies with strong ESG practices. As you can see, the government, which is recently built in UK, they are also have an agenda of net zero in their manifesto. So the government will implement stricter regulations to combat these climate changes. And if we are decarbonizing it, we will get benefits. If you talk about the UK government ambitious target of becoming net zero, within the UK, it's 2050. But the UK 5-year environmental plan, which signifies that the solar capacity should be increased and we should become net zero in low carbon or low energy is by 2035. Presently, the overall demand for the electricity within the UK is 30 to 35 gigawatt, and which goes exponentially 50 gigawatt during winters. But on the other side, we are only generating 4% of the solar renewable energy through the electricity, solar from the renewable energy resources. However, 40 to 45% of the energy still depend on fossil fuels. If we talk about the Northwest region, we have an installed capacity of roughly zero point 0.8 gigawatt, which we are looking to expand further and looking to overcome the use of fossil fuel by optimizing or implementing strategies so that we can use more renewable source for generation.
Thank you, Piyush. And I imagine there's a mix of knowledge levels in that audience. So, Gary, can you help us understand what solar technology is, and in layman's terms, if you can?
Yeah, of course. Solar PV is short for photovoltaic, which just means energy from daylight. Basically, it's quite a simple technology. It creates DC current of power on the roof through the solar panels. Cables run down from the roof into the building or externally to units called inverters. And they are basically transformers of power from DC power to AC power, which automatically synchronize with the grid power coming into the building and match the frequency at all times and push solar power into the existing electrical infrastructure within the building. And what it does is it matches the power pattern and pushes the power into the loads within the building at 1 volt higher than the grid at all times. So the solar power gets used as a priority because of that slightly higher electrical pressure. So if you've got 100 kilowatts being generated on a roof and your building is using 75 kilowatts of power, then you'll be completely off grid and you'll have some excess power, which will then find its way back to the grid through export, or it can be diverted into other ways to utilize that power through creating free hot water, free car charging, maybe battery storage in the near future as well. So it's a pretty simple technology, really. There's no moving parts to any of the systems that we install, so very little with regard to maintenance of mechanical elements. It's just purely sits there and does its job and turns daylight into usable power for your building for free.
Thank you, Gary. So I guess it's important for that business to work out whether solar is right for them. So before we get into the detail around building the business case and the details behind the installation, how can we help a business understand whether solar is right for them? So Piyush, how suitable is solar in commercial settings? And are some industries better suited for solar than others? Does the age of the building matter, for example?
Yes, so the solar energy can be highly suitable for the commercial setting, to be honest. However, we have seen residential sectors are also booming when with the installation of solar panels, they are using small panels. But when we talk about the effectiveness, that varies and depends on several factors. One of the factor is the type of industries they are. And when we talk about the industry type, it should be a high intensive industries such as manufacturing, data centers, warehouse, where particularly they are drawing more energy than required. Then we can look for a retail and hospitality sector. They have a very uneven type of energy consumption throughout the year. It depends, during the peak time, they have a more energy. During off peak times, they have a lesser energy. This sort of businesses basically attracts good for the solar panel. Even for the agricultural sector, where we have a large area, we can opt for a solar farm. When we talk about the building suitability, roof suitability is one of the biggest concern because it requires lots of different parameters, such as what's the size or the shape of the roof. It is well suited for our equipment for the solar panels. Is it large, flat, slope? Also, the direction in which your building is. Like, is it north facing? That is good for the solar panel. If it is east facing, it is slightly less efficient. Also, the condition and the load bearing capacity of the building. So building age comes into the picture. For a new building, we know buildings are taking lots of new certification depending upon the BREEAM, and they manufacture the buildings so that it can be more sustainable and more energy efficient. But for the older building, they need to do some sort of strengthening work so that they can look for solar panel installation. Also, it depends on the building use type. If you're installing a solar panel for an office use building, you should look to optimize that use during the daytime when you have a maximum occupancy. So the solar energy during peak sunlight hours can have substantial cost on the electricity bill, and that will help you to reduction on your energy bill. Same goes with your warehouse or distribution centers. Also, the educational institutions like college, universities, they can also benefit from the solar panel if they look for their operational cost reduction over a period of time. And then I would say there are some additional consideration as well, because considering the weather in the United Kingdom, especially Manchester, we got 3 to 4 heat days here in Manchester. So starting with a small and proportionally expanding the solar array will have a long-term benefit for a business.
Thank you, Piyush. Yeah, it sounds like all sorts of buildings are able to take on solar. Richard, you're going to be able to offer some very valuable insight because obviously you have a solar array over on your premises at Crystal Doors. What sort of initial feasibility considerations did you have to take into account?
Initially, it was the actual cost. As Crystal Doors didn't have a lot of money, and I couldn't afford to have all the roof done in one go. Hence the reason why Gary had said earlier that they had it done in 2 phases. Also, the first phase was for me to be able to sort of understand that people do quotations, and obviously they're not necessarily quotations that are genuine. Is this the sun and the way that the solar panels works had to be proven, and we've now got Solis, and we've seen the proof is we've actually exceeded what the Perfect Sense said. So Perfect Sense is obviously a genuine company that wants to help companies. My mum and dad said when I was young, there's no such thing as a money tree. Solar panels on roofs are money trees. Crystal Doors is now quite happily paid off the debt. We had a 5-year loan on both of them, and now it's literally £40,000 a year pure profit. And then once we go to 24 hours, it'll go to 50,000 a year as a benefit in kind for us consuming all this solar. The hard one is Rochdale rains all the time, and you sort of think, well, today it's not a good solar day, but because of the way that the solar works over the different days of the year, you get what is sort of like the total year use, and that's the one mainly for us to be able to understand. For the actual working out, it's what is it from your monthly, what is the maximum demand that a company takes for the electricity, what is the amount that they use per month, and from that, Gary and the solar companies quite easily can work out how much is going to be consumed by yourselves and how much is going to be exported.
Thank you, Richard. I think, yeah, a conversation with your solar installer can answer many of the questions that you're unsure of, whether it's the right thing to do, whether you're spending enough energy for it to be worthwhile. Gary, typical timescales from end to end, how long would it take from feasibility all the way to installation?
For most parts of the process, we're relying on other people. So the part that takes the longest is actually getting permission from the grid to connect. Any sizable system above 12 kilowatts needs permission from the grid before we can actually install. So that can typically take anywhere between 45 and 65 working days, depending on what type of supply you have, whether you're metered at low voltage or metered at high voltage, because you have your own transformer. Whilst running in parallel with that, we can be doing the other feasibility works that need to be done. So we can do a full technical site survey. We can work out the electrical design on how we're going to integrate it into your building and how to connect safely and compliantly, use space for inverters and things that are obviously agreeable to yourselves and suit the location. We also always undertake a structural engineer's report to make sure that the roof is strong enough. And in my experience, 95% of commercial buildings are suitable to house solar PV on the roof. Anything that's steel framed is absolutely fine because they're over-engineered, and the weight of solar panels is negligible when you look at the surface area that they're spread over. So putting solar panels on a commercial roof, you're only usually adding around 10 kilos per square meter. So that is usually well within the kind of engineering factors that the building was designed to take. So it's pretty simple. So once the grid give us permission to connect, we pull all of that information together into a feasibility outcome report, and then it's only at that point does a business need to decide whether to push the button and give a green light, and then after that probably 3 or 4 weeks mobilization. So the fastest, I would say, from a company asking us to do a feasibility study to being on site and starting the installation would be about 4 months. Typically, I'd guess it's usually about 6 months.
Okay, 6 months. And are there any particular technologies that partner well with solar? You always hear about battery storage going hand in hand with solar, but when would battery storage make sense for a business?
For most businesses, it's very close to making sense. Battery storage is now coming out of the kind of early adopter stage. So there's many hundreds of thousands of battery installations in domestic properties right now. There are many large scale solar and wind farm deployments of batteries on a large industrial grid scale as well. So at the very large end, they make sense. At the domestic end, they absolutely make sense when most households are out during the day and aren't always around to use all of the solar power available. It makes sense to store it and use it at night. We're now in a situation that battery storage has come on a long way with regard to the energy efficiency of the units, the energy density, how much power they can store and how much power they can deploy. And also the cost has really fallen in the last couple of years in particular, and will continue to do so for a little while yet. So I would say by next year, the battery storage in the commercial market will be mainstream. So we're almost there as far as that type of thing. Other technologies that work really well with solar are, of course, EV charging for light vehicles, cars at the moment, increasingly small delivery vans and transit-sized vans. And again, in the future, there'll be HGV wagons as well that will need charging. So any power coming off the roof can be diverted to free transport, basically, and a clean way of doing so. You can also divert spare power to create free hot water if you use that for cleaning or wash down or manufacturing, food production, etc. There are other emerging technologies like heat batteries, which you can divert spare electricity to, which can be charged up, if you like, and be a heat store to create hot water and heating later on or overnight. So yeah, there's lots of emerging technologies that can be bolted on, but solar really is the kind of foundation to all of that. Once you've got solar, you can monitor the data that's coming off it in real time, see how much of the solar power on the roof you're actually using for free in real time, how much is being exported back to the grid when you've got too much power being generated, and you can use that data then to model different outcomes to say, well, if I was to have a battery storage unit and I was to feed that excess solar into it, how quickly would that pay for itself, and how could that benefit our facility overnight, for example. So lots of complementary technologies can be bolted onto solar once you've got it.
It sounds like, yeah, solar's the foundation and a lot can grow out of it technology-wise. So you've decided as a business you want to go down the solar road. Your next step is building that business case for that decision maker. So, Piyush, what would you say are the motivations for installing solar? How can solar benefit a business?
We have heard a term like net zero. We always want to reduce our carbon, and every businesses want to start their sustainability journey. So I think giving up the conventional way of using the energy, that is from getting the grid. If it is not using the renewable supply energy for generation, then we should go for a solar panel installation. That's the first thing I'll say. But the second thing is, we don't have any dependency if we go with the solar panel installation. Plus, we will be reducing our electrical consumption. We will be optimizing it. So the resilience on fossil fuel mixtures market will be reduced. Second, most of the companies now want to become net zero. They are using these sort of terminologies as their marketing pitch, because once they become sustainable and generating their own electricity, they are helping to sell it to the other businesses. Next thing is the brand reputation. A strong commitment on to decarbonization basically helps the brand reputation of a company, differentiating it from the competitors. So the benchmarking within the market sector will gonna support them and have increased customer loyalty. It will also help them to retain the talent, because whenever they're gonna hire new talent from the market, they usually start asking question to the businesses: Are you sustainable enough? What's your future plan in terms of saving the energy or become a responsible business? So I think these are the drivers that will basically help businesses to look for a solar system. On the other hand, there are other renewable sources as well, like the wind panel and all those things, but the regulation which is required for the solar panel installation is quite lesser. Every business can go for it, and considering the day-to-day advancement in the solar panel, the smaller panel can still give you a bigger amount of carbon, bigger energy capacity, and that is good for a business to run with.
Thank you, Piyush. So yeah, many benefits: cheaper energy bills, looking great to your customers, looking great to your own workforce, helping the planet. I imagine when you bring solar into your business decisions and questions, in that meeting, the first question they will ask is, how much is it going to cost us? So Gary, I expect it depends on a multitude of factors, but how much do these technologies cost, and are there different business models available? Could you lease these solar panels, or do you have to buy them in full?
Yeah, there's lots of options available. Of course, CapEx is the first option, and that's the way to benefit from all of the financial rewards from day one. But there's three ways to get solar, really. You can buy it, you can lease it over a short period and pay for itself, and you can actually, in certain circumstances where it's a reasonable size system, you can get an investor to pay for it, who can own, operate and maintain it for life, and create some free power into your building, which you can buy off them. So you can buy, you can lease, or you can have it for free in certain cases. The most popular is probably CapEx, because obviously then you get a return on investment, and most businesses will see a return on investment between 2.5 to kind of 3.5 years break even for most businesses, if they're consuming most of the power coming off the roof for free in real time. When you look at, if you don't want to use CapEx for the project, there are many billions of pounds of money waiting on the sidelines to lend to businesses to install solar PV, because it's a very low risk, predictable return, and the amount of money that is available to businesses is astonishing, really. So what you can do, as Richard did and lots of other customers, is take out what we call a self-financing loan. You can literally match the term of the loan to the repayments that you're going to make and make sure that they are equal to or less than the bill savings that you're going to achieve. So if you take out a £50,000 loan for solar, you can take it over 5 years, and your bill savings might be £12,000 a year, for example. The repayments on the loan might be similar, £11,000, £12,000 a year. So basically, the solar will be funding itself with money that you would be sending to the power company anyway. So all you're doing is making a decision to divert some money from the power company to a finance provider for a set number of years so that it's cash positive or cash neutral. And after that period of the loan is finished, you've had a solar system installed on your roof worth many tens of thousands of pounds or hundreds of thousands of pounds in a lot of cases. And that money, that solar has paid for itself, literally by diverting money from your power company. Instead of buying power from the grid, you've had a solar PV system that's actually paid for itself on a cost neutral basis.
That's amazing. So yeah, people don't need to be worried about one large lump sum leaving their account. And you answered my next question, which was going to be, what sort of payback should a business expect? So you said the return on investment would be 2 to 3.5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, 2 to 3 years on a capex model, or again, a lease type of finance, short-term finance. You might break even with 4 or 5 years. Some people take a loan over 7 years just to make sure that it's actually cash positive from month one. But yeah, there's lots of flexible arrangements for financing as well. So it pays for itself very quickly, and the lifetime expectancy of a solar PV system is at least 30 years, if not longer. So once the short repayment of your loan or repayment of capex into your budget has occurred in 3 to 5 years, then it's literally a cash machine on your roof for a business, and it has all the sustainability credentials to go with it as well that you can shout about, and to hopefully win more work, keep your employees happy, keep your customers happy, etc.
I think that's a really important point to note about the finance. Richard, over to you. What led you to getting that final sign-off approval? Did you have any challenges in getting such a large capital project over the line?
We were obviously one of the early adopters, and today the green funds are literally just signing them off, even if you're not making money, because they know it's separate, which is what Gary was trying to pertain to. If I try to get a loan for a vehicle that they know is going to lose value, they know it's a risk. The reason why they give loans out very easily for the solar is exactly what Gary said, is they know that the return is going to happen over the next 30 years. What happened with Crystal Doors is we couldn't afford the first one. I have maxed out the amount of borrowing. We've just recently spent £500,000. This is the other side, is the capital investment is going to be taken off your profits. So you won't be paying corporation tax. And obviously the reason why corporation tax has jumped up to 25% is to try and force businesses to do more research and development to be able to claim those back, and to increase your capital expenditure to be able to claim those back. So there is a massive benefit that in year one, when you buy your solar panels, you don't pay the corporation tax. So you almost get sort of like 20% knocked off your bill straight away because you're not paying the corporation tax. And that's something else that needs to be said. It's about how to manage it. But for me, the most important one is engage with somebody to do with solar. If you thought about it before, or you're thinking it's sort of like an if and a but and a maybe, as long as you've got a roof, even if you're renting the roof, get hold of the landlord. We know what's come through. Yesterday, Rachel Reeves said, onshore, we've now got wind. Great British Energy is a reality. It's 90 billion coming through. It is going to happen. We will be at 95% by 2035 easily. We can't get wind, the offshore winds there. Solar on our roofs, we must do, because we're going to change the electricity in about 3 years to 5 years' time, that you'll be paying per hour different unit rates. And only those people that get off the grid by having their own solar and have their own batteries are going to benefit. So for me, it's jump quickly before we see the November budget, because I think there's going to be tax changes that won't be to our benefit. The government know how much profit can be made out of solar and wind. We need to jump on it as fast as possible. Solar
can give a lot of security, can't it? Were there any hidden costs that need to be factored in, Richard? Did a roof need to be fixed? Anything to do with planning?
No, the planning side, we didn't need the planning permission, which was great. The only one that we've been caught out recently is our fire for the insurance. What they're saying is it has to have an isolator. And obviously at the time, 5 years ago, it was sort of not necessary. The fire brigades are sort of saying, well, what happens if they start melting? That's now changed. Those have disappeared. So we spent just a couple of £100 with yourselves, guys, didn't we, to have 2 isolators put at the bottom. That was it. So there is no major issues. The actual inverters are expensive. Those are insured, that we've got a guarantee for them. The installation went perfectly. I think there was just one that a cable got snapped and that was changed immediately. We didn't have any issues. They put the scaffolding up the side and then put them on the roof. And as Gary said, 10 kilograms per square meter. That's, if you can walk on a roof, even fragile roofs, solar panels can go on. I thought it was going to be the angle of the roof. Even that's not necessarily an issue. The software nowadays, the data that they've got, how they pull it together, is you will get a very much guaranteed, this is the cost, this is your inputs, this is your outputs, is it worth it, yes or no? Getting a quote now, to me, is as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a business has got their quote, they want to go ahead with it. So let's delve into the installation step. So what does a business need to understand or be aware of at that installation stage? So Piyush, what should a business look for in a project partner? Are there any standards and accreditations their installers should have?
So when choosing a project partner for the solar installation, we as a green economy basically helps to demystify the technologies for working with businesses and to build trust in renewable and create new sales opportunities for local interested partners. But we have a diagnostic system in place where we look for the standard accreditation. First thing is, do the company have micro generation certification scheme in place for installers and products? Does they comply with ISO standards or environmental management system? What's the experience and track record of that business? Have they worked for this sort of project or some in commercial sectors? Then we review the case studies and have try to have the client testimonials just to gauge their reliability and performance history. We also look at the technical expertise, how technical expert this business is, especially in integrating solar with other technologies like battery storage or smart grid system. Then we talk about the financial stability, check for the financial health of the business, potential partner to ensure that they can support the entire project. We also look for the ability to offer various financing option like green funding thing or some sort of a leasing or power purchase agreement. As a green economy, we are working to address these challenges and simplifying this process. And by leveraging the resources and network provided by us, marketplace businesses can have more confidently navigate these complexities of solar project and ensuring they choose a partner that aligns with their sustainability goals and operational need.
Thank you, Piyush. Yeah, my main takeaway is make sure that that installer does have MCS. It should be on their website. MCS will have a directory of themselves, and all of the installers that we work with are MCS certified. So make sure they are so they're not a cowboy. Gary, earlier you mentioned how long the timescale is all the way from feasibility to install, but how long does the actual installation take?
It depends a little bit on the type of building. If you've got a big metal roof, then it's quite quick. We have been doing this a long time, so we kind of line things up and make it as efficient as possible. And we're trying to keep this disruption to site as a minimum. Most of our work, 90% of our work, is done on the roof or in a plant room. So we don't disrupt operations at all. We try to be as invisible as possible on site. And if it's a metal roof, then we can usually install anywhere between 100 and 200 kilowatts per week. So the vast majority of our jobs are done and dusted within a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month at the most. For smaller systems, they can be done and dusted within a day or two. Different types of roofs are more complex, Flat roofs have more components because there's a full kind of weighted mounting system that's used. Tiled and slate roofs can be a bit more tricky and a bit more skill needed to install those. But for most industrial type metal roofs, it's around about 100 kilowatts a week is a fair estimation to have on time frames.
And then Richard, when you got your solar array installed, can you verify what Gary said? Was there no disruption to your business? You didn't have to shut down power or anything?
Oh no, we didn't have to shut down power. I think it was just the switch over for literally half an hour, and that was outside working hours. The main one was, it was just like a lorry load of solar panels arrived. They were parked on our car park, which was fine. They then had the scissor lift. So basically all we lost was 6 car parking spaces next to the building, and they went up and down all day long. I think the 100 kilowatts is when it's a big system, that'll be true. For ours, it was sort of like a 2-week stint on both of them, because it's delivery of the product, it's sort of preparing it, and then it's the installations. But yes, they work on the outside and the inside at the same time. Is the electricals on the inside for the inverters and the cables going through was done at the same time as the solar panels put on, and obviously it's weather permitting as well. If it's absolutely piddling it down for the whole week, they're not going to work on that. They did work in the wind. We got both of them done just at the beginning of spring, and it was fine. But yes, definitely 100%. It's not something that they come on and then they sort of scratch their heads and disappear again. No, this is on site, deliver and install. It is amazingly to watch it. It's dramatic to watch your roof change colour at that speed, and then to be able to switch the panels on and see the actual solar coming through. It's an exciting day. It's one that I will remember for the rest of my life. Is the beginning of free energy. We buy renewable energy, and obviously it's straight from our roof straight into our factory. This is where 8% of all electricity cost is the distribution. And this is one of the things that the government spends a lot of money on. Is it's 5 billion just to get the cable that they're going to be installing all the way from Drax. I think they're going to turn the wood off, going all the way up to the wind farms. This is the most efficient way of running it. So it goes straight from that straight into my Tesla. I wish it was bi-directional. I have a Nissan that's bi-directional. This is the future, and it's not going to go cheaper. It's going to go more expensive because we now got the government wanting to get on board. They don't want us to be off the grid. We've got a beautiful window now to be able to do it as fast as possible.
Amazing. And Richard, who had to get involved from the business? Did the facilities management team get involved at all?
But I only know from Perfect Sense, and Perfect Sense have got a specialist for every single department. From my point of view, they came down, they did the survey, we then got the reports, which to me made sense. That report was sent to our banks. Our banks released the money quite happily on both occasions. But then of what's going to happen is obviously you've got the risk assessments and all the rest of it turning up, and then the start date. And on the start date, it was, can we have 6 car parking spaces? That was it. They came along, dropped a lorry full off, which fortunately we have a big forklift truck, and then from that one it was a big gang turned up of sort of like 8 people, and they got on with it. The only thing we had to do is make them a brew.
Amazing. So yeah, it doesn't sound like there's any disruption at all. A loss of a few car parking spaces, but that's about it.
No, we could still access the lorries in and out because they were sort of like one side. If you have a look at the Crystal Doors website, is they accessed it straight through the gates, straight forwards, and to the right and to the left, we still have the spaces. Yes, it was a busy time, but we have a car park over the road. Yes, there's more than one van that's going to turn up. What pleased me the most is everybody usually has, a bit like when I buy one of these complicated machines, there's an issue that something didn't expected. As Gary said at the very, very beginning, solar panels is really simple technology. I can remember at Tandy when I was a little kid, I just loved solar panels and the little electrics and the rest of it. This is panel, plug and play. It really is. And I think that's the one that they don't have the issues. There's no issues with the electricity that's coming in at the moment. And it's just then, once they've got the cables ready, it's turn your power off, connect those cables, turn it back on again. It was literally 12 minutes between off and on with our electrician. And it was happy days.
Thanks, Richard. It's a really valuable insight to have. Yeah, insight from someone that's literally had it done. Yeah, it's very valuable. So as a business, you've got your solar panels installed now. Now let's delve into that aftercare. So the install's complete, what steps does a business need to take to make sure that system's running efficiently? So you kind of touched on this just now, Richard. But Gary, is it a fit and forget type thing? What is a typical maintenance schedule looking like?
It's mainly fit and forget. However, we'd always recommend an annual electrical check. That's wise to make sure that the system is performing as it should. We always include performance monitoring and the first year's worth of aftercare within our project proposals. So for the first 12 months, we will monitor month by month the performance output versus what was predicted to make sure you get what you expected to get. And then after a year, we will send an engineer to site to do a full electrical check and overhaul, test and inspect every part of the system electrically and give a report to show that that's been done. Insurers like that, so I would always recommend an annual electrical check. With regard to maintenance, as far as cleaning is concerned, then that varies massively site by site. I think it's fair to say that I don't think Richard's panels have been cleaned, but it doesn't affect performance because of the self-cleaning properties and the occasional rain that Rochdale gets. But again, it does depend on the environment that the building is situated in. If you're next to a quarry, for example, and there's a lot of dust, then of course you might need cleaning every 2-3 years. But there's lots and lots of sites that we manage. We've got 250 commercial systems that we've installed over the last 15 years. And I would say probably less than 20% of them have ever been cleaned. So it's very site specific with regard to ongoing cleaning is concerned, but an annual electrical check I would say is a must. But other than that, they kind of sit there, do the job. The solar panels are solid state technology. The silicon just sits there, absorbs the light, excites some electrons and turns it into free electricity into your building. Occasionally there are cooling fans and filters that need to be cleaned on inverters, but that can be all done as part of the annual electrical check. So very, very low maintenance because there's no moving parts to anything that we install.
I saw a photo on LinkedIn the other day where a solar array was boarded with some spikes to fend off the birds. But is that a myth? Do birds actually, can they be disrupting the solar panels?
Occasionally, it depends on what type of roof mounting there is. It's more common on domestic properties, to be honest, where there's a tiled roof and the solar is fitted on a frame above the roof. So there's actually gaps where birds can get in and try to nest. It's very rare that that happens on commercial roofs because the panels are fitted very closely to the metal roof in most cases, and there's no room for birds to get too cozy really. Of course, they in certain areas they can make a bit of a mess, but again that tends to clean off the majority of issues with the next downpouring of rain. But it all depends on also the pitch and orientation of the roof as well. So the steeper the roof, the more kind of self-cleaning happens with some heavy rain now and again. But if it's a very low-pitched roof, then it might need attention. It might need a bit of cleaning and maintenance now and again, depending on where you are in the country.
That's interesting. And then Richard, how easy is it to operate the tech? Do you get some sort of dashboard? Do you see how much solar power you've generated each day? What does it look like on your side? Oh, wow. Shall I share that photo you shared with me? Is this what's on your phone? Oh, you're muted, Richard.
If you could just scroll down a little bit, that'll be superb, please.
This bit?
I can't see it's gone down. It says how much the PV is. Where we've got is, can you scroll down to show the years? Is it possible? Where we've got it is yeah, March is when it starts and kicking off is now we're getting sort of like 200 kilowatts a year, and that's what it is. It's come your summer times. You've got the majority of it. Come winter times, you've still got some coming through, but it's understanding. And like I said, we've got this app Solaris, Perfect Sense, monitor it for the first year to make sure that there is no spikes, no issues. I was surprised that I thought we were going to have the roof cleaned. I think we've got one of them now for over 5 years, Gary, is it? The first phase, and they've not been cleaned. And because this year, this March, April and May, we've actually got good weather coming through because of climate crisis. It's actually getting better every year. And that's the positive from us. From 4 years ago, this year will be the best year that we've ever got as a yield to do with the sun. I think that's going to continue.
Thank you, Richard. I can't see what you're seeing, so apologies if I'm showing the wrong thing. And then just one last question to the panel. Does anyone have any last reflections or bits of advice that you'd give to a potential buyer of solar? To the floor, anyone can answer this.
I would say it's worth finding out. We've got a few different ways of giving an idea of how much solar could benefit a business. We're soon to launch a very basic solar savings calculator on our website. We're just going through some beta testing of it now, so we can make that available potentially in the comments when you share the video around the attendees. Basically, that's a function where you can draw around your roof on a kind of satellite image, and it will make certain assumptions about the power that you consume and what you pay for it, and then it'll give you an idea on what solar power size of system you might be able to fit on that roof area, how much it might cost, and what the financial benefit would be. And then if you want a more detailed, bespoke design and proposal, then we can do that from desktop information on satellite images and any energy data that you can send to us through half-hourly data or through energy bills. And again, there's no cost to that on a desktop basis. And then even if you do want us to come and do a site-specific feasibility study, then it's a very low cost. We only ask for 995, and no commitment beyond that, and that's just to pay for the structural engineer's report, full technical site survey, electrical design work, and the G99 application to the grid. All of that gets done in the feasibility stage, and that doesn't commit you to go ahead. That just makes sure that all of the jigsaw pieces that would need to be in place before you install solar are put in place, and that gives you peace of mind to know that it is going to be a solid business case, and you've done all your homework, and we've helped you to analyse all the different factors to make sure that solar is going to be right for your business. So yeah, I think it costs very little or nothing to find out what the business case might look like. So engage with a reputable company that's been around for a long time, and yeah, have a look to see if it's going to suit your business. But most businesses with a roof and a decent energy bill, it will be suitable.
Can I just add on to what Gary said? It's one of the questions is thought batteries were stabilizing agents. We've got power factor correction, and if you've got 3 phases, is whichever phase is taking the most load, that's how much you're going to get charged. And we had our lights on one phase, which was 22 kilowatts. So we were paying an extra 22 kilowatts across all phases. If we'd spread it over 3 phases, we'd have only paid 7 kilowatts extra. And I think what Gary said is very important, is to have an audit of what's going on in your premises, and to be able to then have, a bit like the green economy, come down and do an audit, do a baseline assessment to do with carbon footprint and find your quick wins and low-hanging fruit. Exactly the same with the reputable solar panel company, is they will come down and look at your electricity bill, and so to say what's going on, look at the actual electricity with an electrician. And that is, to me, very important. Is there's going to be a lot of people that are actually blind to how much they're losing, and it's only when you realise between the 3 phases where you're using that electricity, what is your demand and load, and somebody reflecting on it and saying, this is why it's suitable, this is why it's not suitable. In the majority of cases, they're going to save you money. And for me, it's bag a bargain quickly.
That data is extremely valuable, isn't it? We're going to move on to the Q&A section. So hopefully you have been submitting your questions throughout. So I'm going to pass you over to my colleague, Tim, and he'll manage the Q&A.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Just a reminder, we do have the Q&A to the left of the screen. I'm aware of times we might not have the time to address all of these questions, but Gary has been answering questions in the chat. So I would advise people in the audience to have a scroll through and they'll be able to see how each of the questions have been answered. If you would like to ask a question still, please include a name if you'd like to point it to anyone in particular. Otherwise, we will just post it to the panel and see who would like to answer. So I will go to the questions that haven't been addressed yet. We have an interesting question from Dominique. She would like to know what are the right questions I should be asking to avoid investing in panels that are linked to forced labor. So if anyone would like to take this question.
Yeah, Perfect Sense are very ethical with regard to the products that they purchase on behalf of our clients and install. So the short answer to that really is that we've done that research and work for you. There are a number of reports out there that have exposed certain practices from certain manufacturers in the northwest of China that are massively unsustainable and unethical with regard to forced labour. We steer clear of anything that's manufactured in that area, or any manufacturer that can't show us their supply chain transparency with regard to where their raw materials come from. So in short, if you engage with a reputable solar company, they should have done that work for you already. If they haven't and they don't know the origin of their products and they're just going installing the cheapest equipment they can find, then you could get caught. You could get caught out.
Brilliant, thank you, Gary.
That is really Crystal Doors went to Gary at Perfect Sense. Crystal Doors has got B Corp. We're in the top 3% in the world. We've got the Queen's Award for Sustainability and the finalist this year for Institute of Directors for Sustainability. To me, Gary said the perfect word there: transparency. And that's where, for me, is you start to understand who is worth talking to and what issues you're going to have.
Excellent, thank you, Richard. We have a question here as well about maintenance, which Gary, you've already answered in the Q&A, but it'd be nice to, I think, bring it up again just in case anyone hasn't seen the chat yet. So once you've installed a solar system, what sort of maintenance is required to keep them working at optimal levels?
Yeah, so monitoring is important, and we include a live monitoring portal for our clients to access with every installation. That not only monitors how the solar PV is generating, but it also, in most cases, we can monitor what the building is consuming as well, and show them in tandem, so that you can see what proportion of your power every day is coming from the roof for free, and how much excess might be being produced through export calculations as well. In addition to real-time monitoring, which you can look at whenever you want and is refreshed every 5 minutes, then we can look at monthly performance reports to make sure that the system is doing what it should. That would highlight any performance issues if there were any. And then, of course, the annual electrical test and inspect that we mentioned before is a must for most sites, and insurance companies do quite often insist on that, just for electrical safety. But other than that, it's very little maintenance apart from those elements that I've described.
Brilliant, thank you, Gary. Next, I think we'll move on to a question that's about battery storage. So we have talked about the payback on a solar PV system, but Becky would like to know what sort of payback could I expect from installing battery storage, and what factors does this depend on?
Yeah, I can pick that up as well. I'd say there's several different factors to take into account, and there's no specific answer to that without knowing a lot more information about that particular site and its pattern of consumption. Of course, it depends on whether you have a number of different technologies on site, like solar PV, like electric vehicle charging, whether you've got any electrically powered heating systems or heat pumps, etc. Then every site is different with regard to batteries. So we do have to do some quite complex modelling. It will depend also on the differential between your day rate tariff from the grid and your night rate tariff from the grid, if indeed there is any difference, because batteries can be used for leveraging that difference between cheaper night rates being charged up from the grid into the battery and then deploying back into the building that energy when it's most expensive to buy from the grid. If you do have solar, then it's how much excess solar is being produced month by month. And we can model that data as well to see how much of that can be stored and redeployed into the building overnight, covering the base load or the next day, for example. So unfortunately, there's no right or wrong answer, but I would guess that between 5 and 10 years is the payback at the minute for battery storage in most cases. But that is rapidly coming down. So I believe by this time next year, battery storage capacity and cost will make it a mainstream technology that will get that payback down underneath the 5-year kind of period, which is usually the kind of benchmark that businesses look at.
Great, thank you very much for that, Gary. I think we have time for one last question. This one is pointed towards Piyush. Suhail would like to know, could I calculate the amount of solar energy I can produce myself? And what about the environmental impacts of solar panels themselves? How might you build that consideration into a net zero plan?
Thanks, Suhail, for the questions. Yes, we can have the ballpark figure in terms of the solar energy that we can produce as a business. But the thing is, we have to understand what's the overall consumption of our business, first thing. What's the location our office is? What's the orientation of the building? So in a short, we have lots of different factors that we have to consider. Once we have the actual consumption, how much solar we can generate with the installation, first thing. Now, talking about the impacts of the solar panels themselves, we do agree that during the extraction of raw material for the manufacturing of the solar panel, we invest a lot of energy, but the life period of a solar panel is roughly around 20 to 25 years, and we still developing and considering the advancement in the technologies. We are looking for a more reusable sort of material so that we can mitigate the carbon footprint or carbon numbers during the manufacturings. And I think over a period of time, we'll get a more efficient solar panel materials that have a minimal impact on the environment. Hope this will
Great, thank you very much, Piyush. I think that's all we have time for in terms of the questions today. So Talia, I will hand back to you.
Thank you. So that poll you did at the beginning, we're going to do that poll again now. Hopefully you have developed your knowledge of solar in this webinar, so I'm hoping the answers will be significantly different. So I'll give you 5 seconds for that this time. Okay, and then we've got 2 minutes left on the clock, so I'm just going to give you a very swift run through green economy and the support that we can provide. So Piyush mentioned at the beginning, there's 2 sides to green economy. One side supports businesses to decarbonise, and one side supports businesses like Perfect Sense, different green installers to grow. So in terms of what support we provide to the businesses in the green sector, we've developed a marketplace, a public-facing directory, if you will, of green solution and installers providers. So if you know of anyone that provides green technologies or installs any sort of green technology, it would be great to have them on that marketplace. It's an easy way for you to find a local installer, and yeah, the likes of Perfect Sense are on there. If you do want to decarbonise, there's a wealth of support they can offer you. They can come visit your premises with their energy loggers, their thermal imaging cameras, and do an audit for you. Work out where you can make some quick wins, where you can save your energy, how much carbon you'll be saving as a result. They've also got a grant that can help you implement those technologies. So if you wanted a heat pump or some motors and drivers, they have a up to 5k grant that they can offer you. But if any of that is an interest, please do go on the Green Economy website and make an inquiry. Our next webinar is going to be on demystifying climate law on the 10th of September. So you can scan that QR code if you'd like to sign up, or go on our events page on the Green Economy website. And I think we've got 1 minute left, so I think it's just thank yous at this point. So thank you so much to our very knowledgeable panel. I really do appreciate your time. And thank you to our audience for taking part, asking those questions. You make it a lot more fruitful when you ask those questions. I always think the Q&A is one of the best bits in these webinars. So yeah, thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, thanks very much.
Thanks everyone.